Welcome to Diving into Deep Waters. I'm your host, Erin Rowling, and it's been a few weeks. So, actually, as I started to record this, I thought, do I remember how to do this? Because I've taken a few weeks off. I am super thankful for everyone's patience, understanding, kindness, because this mama has been going through some changes lately. But we're going to talk all about it because that's what we do here at Diving into Deep Waters. We talk about the things that are life, and changes is life, whether we like it or not. I'm not a creature of change. I think some people live on change, they thrive on change. And I just like things to go the same pretty much all the time. If my lunch doesn't tell you that I don't like change, I eat the same thing for lunch. I've told you that, I think. If I haven't, I'm telling you now. Pretty much every day. I'm okay like that. It's okay for me. So some of you are like, "Oh, I could never do the same thing all the time." I'm okay with that. And yeah, but that's not where my life is right now. It is definitely full of some twists and turns and changes, and I'm trying to embrace it full on and take in every moment. Everyone does say that time goes by fast, and I don't know if we think we can outsmart that. Uh, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm even seeing like all these babies that I feel like were just born, and they're already like, I'm getting invitations for their 1 year birthday parties and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, we think somehow we can slow it down. Or I remember older people always saying like, the older you get, the faster it goes. And you think, I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you the older I get, the faster it goes. And that is a very true statement. I don't know. I feel like we think we have all this time. And with an open house around the corner, I realized last night I was up till like 11 ordering stuff because I was like, if I don't start doing that, it's not going to get here in time. And sometimes the things that are a little bit different, not your normal things on Amazon, it takes a little time to get them. And so yeah, that's I kind of had that realization last night and started putting things in my cart and spent lots of money. Yay me. But I don't know. I think all the statements of like your blink, it's gone, I think they're true. I do remember when my kids were younger and older people would say, it felt like people that were probably in my position, though they were older, you know what? Isn't that funny? When you think of that, you think of older, and then you become the older. And you're like, it's really not that old. But when you're younger, you think older is older. It's just how it goes. But I don't know. I didn't always appreciate when the older would tell me that. Because, and I was just talking about this with someone recently, like when you're in the throes of young motherhood or young adulthood, no matter if you have kids or not, you're going through a lot of things. Like my daughter is setting up her first apartment and she's feeling all of these bills and all of these things that are kind of rushing at her all at once, and she's realizing like, oh, toilet paper and paper towel and hand soap and dish soap and stuff for your washer and dryer. It adds up so quickly. It's stuff you have to have. I mean, you need it. There's really no way around it. And I kind of just lost my train of thought, which is not a good. I'm not even that far in. I've already lost my train of thought. It's kind of happened to me a lot recently where I just started on a trend. And we were in a counseling session the other day and I started talking and I looked at my husband. I'm like, and where was I going with that? I did that in my message recently on Mother's Day. I'm here. Don't worry. I am here. But, oh, I know. And when they would tell me that, I would think this moment is hard. When I had little ones, it felt difficult the days felt long. The days are long and the time is short. We've all heard that saying too. Also, very true. And I think that that sums it up well. The days feel very, very long sometimes, especially I think I was a stay at home mom. So I didn't leave my house sometimes. Like I was there, me, myself, and I, and four little kids, and didn't get out sometimes. And so when Paul came home, I was like, an adult, someone I can talk to. And here he had been with adults all day, and the last thing he really wanted to do was, chit chat. He did because he was kind and he understood that I needed someone to talk to. So good job, honey. Um, but yeah, I I was just thinking back to that time too, and everything's in hindsight, but I do wish I could say to myself, like, just take a deep breath. Like, this you will only have for so long. I was watching a video the other day of a little boy whose kisses are the full-on mouth kisses to his mama. And oh my gosh, it just took me back instantly to those moments with all four of my kids, because all kids kind of do that, rah, and they just eat your face. And oh, my heart was just like, I miss that. I miss where they just couldn't get enough of you. And you get to a point where they're like, yeah, I don't need you, or I don't want you in my space right now. Things like that. And at the time you're just like, I just want them not to need me all the time. And then you get to the point of life where I'm at, where it's like, I just want to be needed. When my daughter moved into her apartment, I was like, hey, like, I didn't want to step into like, she's very independent, and I wanted her to be able to set this up how she wanted and all of those things. But at the same time, it's like I wanted to be a part of this new journey of hers. And so I was like, hey, could I come? Ready for her to say no. But to my surprise, or not surprise, but just I didn't know how she was going to feel about it. She said, yeah. She's like, Ma, that's a lot for you. And I was like, no, listen, I want to do it. This is not like going out of my way. I truly would love to come see like your new apartment and like buy those first toilet papers. Do you have towels? I think I have one. Oh, well, let's make sure you have one, because your paper towel will only go so far when you're drying off from a shower, which I've done that before. But yeah, I just, if you're in the hard phase, which I think every phase has a hard. So don't think that if you're in the toddler baby section of life and building your family kind of part of life, that that's just the hard part. That it does get easier, because there are some things that obviously do get easier. You don't have to cut up your kids' food anymore at some point. Although my oldest child didn't cut her own steak for quite some time, which is funny. But I don't know, just I don't want to be that older person who's trying to look at you and tell you what to do. But take all those slobbering kisses, because they are precious. And take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. Take each day as it comes, because each day will bring you something new. And I'm seeing these babies crawling and walking and all of this stuff. And yeah, takes me back. I'm also probably in a very emotional state. So as my husband asked me what this podcast was about, and I told him, and he was like, you're going to cry. And yeah, there might be a few tears. Yeah, that's just how it is. As I was saying, like, I don't know, when I look back, I realize like I can't go back and I can't change anything, but I think the same advice applies to like where I am now. I think this advice applies to wherever you are in your journey. And here's the thing, even if some of you are like, oh, she's talking to moms, it's only going to be about moms. No, I think the title of this podcast is called Feelings. which I hope I didn't look to see if I had another podcast named Feelings. So hopefully that works. If not, you're like, that's not the name of this podcast. But you know what? I'm not going to stop right now to find out. We're just going to go with it and hope that that's where it is. Because we all have feelings. We all go through stages of life that bring different feelings. And so don't check out on me, because whether this applies to yourself or maybe just gives you more understanding of what someone else is going through, their emotions, their feelings, because they're valid. And I think a lot of times, I think we're getting better as a society of understanding feelings, maybe to the point where we really are using them way overboard, but in a good a good fleb. Yeah, that's a word. I don't think that's a word. Ebb and flow of life, emotions are good. So, um, yeah, I think that to tell myself right now to, and I might be a little bit, I don't know, I'm feeling a little. I guess I'm like bracing myself. I'm just gonna be candid with you, right? Okay, I'm not even gonna care what my notes say right now. I think I'm trying to brace myself even as I do this podcast with my feelings and my emotions. And even as I went over this podcast, I was like trying to, like not get emotional. Actually, if their tear comes out of this eye, it's not that I'm crying. It's that there's stinking allergies are such a thing. And this eye does not want to stop weeping constantly. Um, but so back to taking a deep breath. All right. I was reminded to pause because I think I am an emotional person. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like, I'm not going to feel. That's what I do sometimes. So you're like, do you do that because you have a lot of feelings? No, I do. I do that inside sometimes where I'm just like, no, don't feel it. Just bar yourself. You're okay. But I, through this process of, and I'm just going to kind of talk through my son graduating. That's kind of what I'm going to use, because I don't know. I felt like I was like barring myself against the feelings that I knew were inevitable. They were going to come. And but sadly, by trying to not feel, I think I was just kind of going through the motions a little bit, like, oh, we have to do this. Oh, I need to do that. And like trying to avoid the emotions. And here's the thing, if you do that for so long, they're going to come get you at some point. But I was super thankful for a very faithful friend who texted me and just said, hey, I know that there's a lot of emotions going on with Joseph graduating. And I just want to remind you to just take it in, savor it. And this is the beautiful thing about friends who are willing to do that for you. So maybe you don't have kids, but you could be this faithful friend. My faithful friend has kids, so she's been there. She's been through two. She understands. But she was on the other side of the world. I don't know what her time zone was. I think she was like 6 hours different than what we were. And she still took the time to text me and just say, hey, just take this in. And I realized when I got that text, I was like holding my breath, which I actually did with all of my labors. They would tell me, you have to breathe, honey. But because I was like, oh, this just is like clicking for me right now. It's clicking for me on as I record. When I was in labor, I knew the pain that was going to come. Not with the first one. The first one, you don't have a clue. But then after the first one, the first pain that comes, you're like, it all comes back to you. And I think I would like bar myself, like, I know it's going to be painful. I know I'm going to go through something. And so I would stop breathing. And they would tell me, no, you need to breathe. And you know what? My nose is about to run. And we're just going to wipe it because, this is real life. I was listening to Dateline the other day and a couple of podcasts, and one, the dog was barking. One, the doorbell rang. Another one, the phone rang. So I was like, you know what? It's Dateline, who's super professional. I need to wipe my nose. I need to wipe my nose. But Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was just in that moment, even with like knowing all that was going to happen with Joseph's graduation, I was just like trying to be tough because I didn't want to feel the emotion. Is any I don't know if you're comprehending what I'm saying, and maybe like think back to times where you just knew that it was going to be emotional and you almost like were like, "No, you're tougher than that. You're tougher than those emotions." And I don't know. I don't think that benefits us. If I'm just being honest, I don't think that's a plus, and I don't think it's you're more strong or anything because you're holding back those emotions. It's just it's okay. It's okay to have feelings. Um I've been teased most of my life. Like even my husband saying like, "Well, you're going to cry." I've been teased most of my life that I am emotional. And it hasn't been till more recently where Paul has said, like, I kind of envy that you're able to just like if we're with a family and they've lost a loved one, as they're talking, I start to weep with them or whatever. And he's like, I wish I could do that. So, maybe it's not such a bad trait after all. Um, but like I said, I feel like I've held my breath to like just protect myself or whatever, but that's not the reality. And we're human. Humans have feelings. And I mean, when you read in the Bible, I mean, I'm in the Old Testament, God has lots of feelings. I mean, he has rage, he has wrath, he's irritated, yet he's loving. Like, you can just tell that he has a plethora of feelings. So, if we are created in the image of Christ, we're gonna have feelings because he has them. So, why do we try to avoid them so much? Why is it like, big boys don't cry, or which is a terrible statement, by the way. Don't ever say that to your boys or children. I mean, I had one kid that cried a lot. They will remain nameless, but they went through a good stint of crying for everything and it was overboard. Like we were like, okay, you Paul's sister actually said, is something wrong with them because they're crying a lot? Yeah, I mean, nothing was wrong with them, but they just didn't know how to manage their emotions at all. So we had to work on that for a while and they got it under control. But yeah, I just don't I think we need to be a little bit more open that feelings are okay and something that we shouldn't ignore and shouldn't ignore in other people either. Because sometimes maybe that makes you feel uncomfortable. If someone has feelings, has a lot of feelings, like I don't know, it can be uncomfortable. But instead of like being uncomfortable, just sit there and listen and be like, "Okay, take a deep breath. It's okay. I'm here with you. It's all right." Now, if you have teenagers, speaking of uncomfortable, I feel like teenagers are very uncomfortable with feelings. Um, some of my kids are more, I don't know, a little bit more emotional than others. And the ones that are not as emotional, like as I've gone through some of these processes of my son graduating, I've had some feelings, of course. And the things that have been said to me are, is this what we're going to do? Or I got kind of emotional the other day about something, and he was like, gross. So, teenagers, not fans of feelings and not fans of their parents having feelings, apparently. And that will make you rethink your feelings. If your teenager thinks it's gross, it might make you think back a little bit. But at some point, let me just tell you from experience, at some point they are going to be unleashed and like if you keep stuffing, at some point the dam will break and you cannot do anything about it. You cannot like you know how you can just like feel it and it's just coming and you do everything in your power to stop it and it's just not possible. It's coming. And I don't know. And I guess I should have been more prepared for this because Joseph is my third kid graduating. He's not It's not the first one, which the first one is like un unknown territory. I there's a lady that it's her first kid graduating when it's my third, and so she's asked me lots of questions like, "How do you feel about this? And how do you feel about that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember wondering the same thing." And I I think in my protection of my feelings, I kind of lied to myself a little bit. Like, it's your third. You're going to be fine. It's not that big of a deal. Like, you've done this. It's okay. He's a boy. You've got your girls. You're a little bit more protective of your girls as you're thinking about them going into the world and all of this stuff. And I can tell you, it's not. It is not easier. That is a complete and utter lie. And when I say like I was like not I think investing in kind of what was happening because I think that's which has not been the case with my other two. Like I was full on, I had things done. And I think I didn't realize until I was putting this podcast together that I was procrastinating things, which I'm already a procrastinator, but procrastinating things even more so, like not taking senior pictures until they were due that weekend, which my lovely friend went with us, took them, had them edited and all of that stuff. But that probably should have been an indicator that I wasn't wanting to deal with my emotions. Um, it was funny. I sent the pictures to our family chat, Joseph's pictures, and I guess I wasn't prepared for the emotions that my kids were going to feel because both my girls, my older girls, they were just like, "What happened to our bubby? Like, why is he so big? Like, why does he look like a man? Why am I crying?" And I wasn't prepared for them to have emotions or feelings either. And here they were. And it's so funny because we call him Bubby. That's what we call them. And before you say that is the word for a female chest, which it is, okay? But it also, because I looked it up, I'm like, you know what? It just feels like this term of endearment. And if you have a son, maybe you call him Bubby too. My friend, they call their boys Bubby. And so she's like, yeah. And someone told me it's a female chest. You're calling your son a female chest. Well, here you are not. Okay. No worries. I looked it up. It's also just another word for endearment for like a little brother or for a son. So we're all good. We are not, if you call your son Bubby, you are not calling him a female chest. So be released of that. Go and call him Bubby all you want. Um, as we were here for graduation weekend with our kids, we started reminiscing, and reminiscing will bring up some feelings, you guys. I I'm sure you guys are like, duh, we know that. But, as I said, I was protecting myself from all of these feelings. And we were sitting around and talking about all these memories that we have with him. And it came up like remember when he almost died from an asthma attack, and which was incredibly scary when that happened. He gave us a few scares there for a while because we thought he had croup, which I had seen from Anna Green Gables. And I remember the first time he couldn't breathe. He woke up at like 2 in the morning. He couldn't breathe. And um, I went back to that movie because like the little sister almost died because, you have to be able to breathe in order to live. And so it was the winter time and I took him outside because I had heard, like that's what helps him. And it ended up calming down, but he was kind of going through that more and more. It was happening more and more often, found out he needed an inhaler. So that I was like, okay, we have an inhaler. Well, one day he went to Awana, which is like kind of like the Christian version of like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts kind of things, something like that. They earn badges and awards and stuff like that. So we had that program at our church and he was there and he started coughing incessantly and just couldn't stop. So my husband was over. I was actually at home preparing for my Mother's Day message, I believe, or some message that I had to do. And I need quiet. So I was like, Paul, take the kids. I need everyone out of here. I need it to be completely quiet. And so Paul calls me, hey, Joseph's coughing really bad. He forgot his inhaler. And so I'm going to bring him home so he can have his inhaler. And I'm like, okay, because we've been able to control this with the inhaler. It's been fine. So I didn't hear from him, He didn't come home. This was before Life 360 because now I could just check Life 360 and know exactly where you are. But that was before that. And so he said that he started to drive and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And he got halfway home and he pulled in a parking lot and he thought, I don't think we're going to make it. Like, he cannot breathe. And so he whipped around, and thankfully we have a hospital in our town, which I'm thankful for, by the way. And so he took him in there, and after several breathing treatments and steroids and everything, they were able to calm it down, and he was okay. And it was crazy because the next morning I remember waking up and Paul turning over and looking at me and saying, if I would have made a different decision, like if I wouldn't have whipped around and gone to the hospital and brought him home, he would have died. And I was like, yeah, I thought it, but I wasn't going to say that to him. Like, if you would have made a different decision, our son would have died. And the gravity of it hit him. And Paul's not a crier like me. And he wasn't crying, but you could tell it shook him up pretty bad. And it was interesting as we were talking about it as a family. Joseph said, he goes, yeah, I remember thinking I'm going to die, which I never heard him say that before. And so we were talking about that, which Amanda made a comment because earlier in the day she had held her friend's baby and she was like, oh my gosh, I have such baby fever, Mom. And I'm like, good for keep having baby fever. And when she's ready. But she, after we talked about that story, she goes, well, there went my baby fever. I think I'm going to wait because you have to keep them alive. And I'm like, yeah, you do. It's actually quite hard to keep these little beings alive. Somehow we do it, but it can be hard sometimes. They do things or whatever. And Joseph goes, well, even when I was like, you first got pregnant with me, wasn't there like issues? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. We, had the two girls. We were trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. Not that trying isn't fun, you guys, but after a while, it gets a little disappointing each month that aren't pregnant. And that's the first time that I had ever experienced that, where I didn't get pregnant right away. And I've shared with you before that, we got some testing done and stuff like that. And we're told the chances of us getting more pregnant were 0%. And I didn't want to believe that report. And it was interesting because I don't know if I've ever told you this part of it, but we were actually helping start a new ministry at that time. And we had met with the people over in Canada. And as we were wrapping up the night talking about this ministry, we actually we were praying, and one of the guys said, aren't you guys trying to have a baby? And we said, yeah, I don't think that's something that, is going to happen. And I said, but, my heart is longing for it. I don't know. I didn't feel like everyone that was supposed to be in my life was in my life. And that's a hard weighing of something too. And I'll just speak to this real quick because I felt like I was being ungrateful because I had two children and I had friends that had no children. So how could I say that I didn't feel like everyone was supposed to be in my life when they had none and I had some? It's just a lot of emotions with infertility and all of those things that come with it. And so they said, well, we're going to pray about that. And I was like, okay, well, we've been praying a lot. I don't know if your prayer is more special than mine, but sure. And so we did. And Paul and I were driving home and we thought, you know what, if we prayed about it, we should probably, there's no Mary situation going on here, just getting pregnant by the Holy Spirit. We got to do our part. And yeah, I won't go into details about that because y'all know how babies are made. But we did find out we were pregnant. And we pinpointed back to that time. And we're so overjoyed, and only to be met with just a lot of bleeding and stuff like that. And basically, a call to the doctors that was like 99% sure you're having a miscarriage, which um, that was very devastating. And it was on the weekend, so they wouldn't see me till the next Monday. So for 3 days, um, I sobbed and cried and felt very, very heartbroken. And like, why? And it's okay to ask why, okay? I just want you to know that. It's okay to ask why because God sees. He sees our pain, He knows our sorrow. And those feelings are okay to share with Him because He already knows what's in your heart, He knows what's in your mind. So go ahead and say it out loud. It's okay. And so, um, we did go on that Monday to have like an internal ultrasound because it was new. It was a new pregnancy. And there it was. I mean, his little heartbeat, was there. And so we don't know what happened. We don't know why I had all of that bleeding and so forth. Um, but we did run to Walmart and I got some Reese's Pieces eggs. I remember specifically because I loved those. And just skipping through the store and just so thankful that, um, you know, we were going to have him. So, and that's part of parenting, right? There's all these roller coasters, there's all these emotions, all these feelings. And, you know, I don't know. I feel like we, as we're reminiscing all these moments, and then I think, and now we're here. We're talking about like just getting pregnant with him. And now here we are, and he's about to graduate. And there's so many moments that happen in between those two parts of life. And doesn't it make sense that we have so many emotions? I mean, if you think about it, like he's 18. I've had 18 years with this boy. That's 18 years of things happening. That's 18 years of emotions. And it was so sweet because my son in law, Frank, and I went to Walmart to get some stuff to grill because my husband's griddle came out. She made her debut to the family and he got her all ready and everything. And as we were driving, we were talking about Joseph graduating and um, he said, how are you doing? And I said, I thought I was doing really well. I was doing really good until, because there's always going to be an until. You stop that, and then there's going to be an until that happens. And what happened is he left his medal at home. He had this medal, and he needed me to run it to him. And it was important. It's a senior scholar medal. So basically, instead of like a valedictorian or a salutatorian, if you've met these certain requirements, you're called a senior scholar. And you get to do like why am I blanking on the word? At the commencement, you get to do a speech. And Abby's like, mom and dad are going to make you do that. And he's like, if you make me do that, you will ruin my graduation because he hates talking in front of people. So we didn't make him do it, but super proud of him for achieving that. And he, in like their composite photo, they need to have it. And then they were going to walk the schools, which is such a cool thing when they walk the high school and then they walk the elementary school and they invited the parents to come see them walk, which I was like, that's probably when I'm going to cry or whatever. So we ran home, grabbed his medal. We run to the school. I'm like, I'm just going to run this in real quick to him, give him his medal, run back out. We'll meet him at the trail. And he's at the door waiting for me to hand him his medal. And I run up, just thinking quick, which it was kind of funny because Paul was driving. Okay. He'll say this. He was probably not driving like a snail. But when you're in a hurry and someone's driving like a snail, they're not. But it feels like it. And I got a little like, just drive. And Paul's like, you're being over the top. And I was like, listen, today I get to be over the top. And he's like, you're right. You're okay. It's fine. What a good husband. You are. If you're that kind of husband, you realize sometimes your wife has emotions and just let her have them. It's okay. Just suck it up and you're fine. You can deal with it. And that just meant so much to me that he was just like, you're right. It's okay. And so he drove a little faster. So I go to run in to give him the medal and I see him. I had not seen him in his cap or his gown or his cords or all of the things that he's earned. And he's standing at the door with his hand out to get it. And I see him and I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. I have been avoiding this, but here it is. And I run back out to the car and I'm like, and Paul's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not. And just the floodgates, just, everything that I had stuffed, everything I had barred myself against, it was just like a monsoon of emotions just were like, girl, you can hold it together no more. We are coming fast and furious. There's no way you can stop it. And I just let it all out. And I told Frank, I said, I don't know if it's because when I saw him in all of his stuff, I also, to spur me emotional, I also saw that 5-year-old little boy who we tried to take to school and he would cry so much because he didn't want to leave his mama. And I was like, he doesn't want to leave his mama, so we'll try preschool and we're just not going to push this. And here he is, like, not crying about school, excited to leave, excited to go to U of M, excited to do all of these things. And he's graduating. And I don't know, it's just, I don't know if you parents can, or grandparents, or even aunts and uncles, like you see them in this moment, maybe the first time that they get really dressed up, or I don't know, anything like that. And then you, in your mind, you go back to this moment when they were little and now they're not little. And like, how did it go from being little to not little? And how did that go? So wait, where did that go? And whew, feelings, they just can come when you least expect them. And they're sneaky little buggers. There were times that I definitely thought that they were going to come. We went to senior tea. They had awards night where he received like his gold course, but he wasn't in his cap and gown. It was just like some cords around his neck and a medal around his neck. And I was like, okay, like we're very proud of him. We had his last band concert. I will say I did get a little emotional with that because I have to wipe my nose again. So excuse me. But snot ain't cute. So you don't want to see that. He had his last band concert and he got an award for best marcher, which made me laugh because he absolutely hates marching. He does not like it at all. And here he got the award for it because he is like super intense about it and he knows his steps and he's very upright and he does a good job at it, even though he hates it. But yeah, there were moments he had his clarinet and his contrabass, and I don't know, it's like memories. I think the memories are a big part of what brings the feelings because I was sitting there and as I'm watching him and Joseph plays with a lot of soul. Like when he plays his instrument, he gets into it and he's not one of those, like my other kids are like out there and doing things and hey, here I am. And Joseph's so reserved but not when he plays music. There's something that happens with him where he just comes alive and I don't know, you can tell he feels every single note that he's playing and you can see by his movement, you're almost in this mesmerized. I've had parents come up to me and say, well, my kid's in band, but I don't even watch them. I tend to watch Joseph because he just captures your attention. Even today, someone said, I was going to text you because I was at the last band concert, and your son, it just plays with so much um, just enjoyment. He loves it. You can tell, and he plays beautifully, which he practices all the time. But it took me back when he was in 5th grade to signing the contract for his first clarinet and thinking, is this going to be a thing? Is he going to do this? Is this, and the squeakity squawks that he had to come to this moment where it's just like a joy to his heart, and it's a joy to those who get to watch him play. He said the other day, he goes, Mom, that wasn't my first instrument, because he now plays about 11 instruments proficiently. But he said, Mom, my first instrument was the recorder, my little blue recorder. So to all the parents out there whose kids are bringing home those little recorders and you literally want to break it in half, it could turn into an absolute love for music. And one day they're going to play and you're just going to be mesmerized by them. Maybe not the recorder, although my mom played the recorder. And Joseph, I said, yeah, it was like a wooden recorder. He goes, where is it? Like anything, any instrument that someone in our family has, he's like, do they still have that? Could I have that? Could I, even Paul's dad's, why can't I think of the word? The thing that opens and closes and has the buttons. That thing. You're all telling me the word, so, accordion. Haha, got it. But, yeah, so don't give up on your kid if they're being very obnoxious with their instruments, because one day there's going to be something beautiful about it. And I think that that's just sitting there and just watching him come from this little boy who, I don't know, just, I wasn't even sure it was going to be a thing, to a boy who, or a young man who loves to play, loves to write music. That's his get to. He is always putting together, I don't know, I go in his room and he's composing something, and we've gotten to hear a few of his things, and they're pretty good. They're getting, the beginning they were he played Sleigh Ride with 18 or 20 different parts on the clarinet. That was interesting. That's when you sit there and you're like, look at you. Anyways, but yeah, graduation day came, and I will end with this because I think this is this is what I really want to get to about feelings and all of those things and emotions. I wasn't sure how I was going to do on graduation day. I'd already had my meltdown, so I didn't know, was that my meltdown and I was good, or how is that going to go? But I did know what could tentatively be a very emotional moment was when at church we have them come and they do a slideshow. I always cry during the slideshow because it's their baby picture, and then it's them, when they're like a teenager, and then they're older, and you're just like, oh. And I always put a picture in of all the siblings when they're little, and it's just like, oh my goodness, they're just grown. And they called everyone up for prayer, and so we're standing up there, and that's when the floodgates happened for me. When our Kara, who takes the pictures for our church, I was like, yeah, she's going to get me probably with a weird look on my face or whatever. And sure enough, yeah, there it is. Because as I was standing on that platform, again, memories, it just took me back. It took me back to the day that we dedicated him before the Lord, where we dedicated him and say, we are committing to raise this child in the ways of Jesus Christ. And we will do the best by living our lives in that way and showing him who Jesus is. And I wrapped my arm around him, maybe tighter. I don't know, it could have been tight, but he didn't move and he didn't seem bothered by it or anything like that. But I felt, and I don't even know what our youth pastor prayed. If you're listening, Josh, I'm sorry. It had nothing to do with you, but I was just in my own world at that moment. And in that moment, my heart resonated with Hannah in the Bible. Because in 1 Samuel 1:27, it says, for this child I have prayed, which I definitely prayed a lot for him. And the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him. And as I was holding tightly on to him, I realized in that moment that I had an opportunity to continue that prayer. Because she says, therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. And I was reminded in that moment that soon my son was going to leave the nest. According to him, 83 days exactly, 82 days, down to the count, like, which you're like, no, and he's like, yeah, and you're like, ah. And he's going to enter the world on his own. And I won't be there to help him every step of the way. That won't be my place anymore. And like I said, I've done this 2 times before. I thought it would be easier, but it's not. And I wrestle a little bit with my flesh, I'm not going to lie. But, and I realized too, he's 18, he'll be 19. And I'm wrestling at this age, but Hannah released her son Samuel to the Lord, and he was about the age of 3. And I said to myself, if Hannah can do it, I can do it. And for me now, that platform is a place that will remind me, because there's moments I know that I want to be like, step in and try to take control. But, I've talked about that in episodes past about having an altar, a place that reminds us of something. And for me, the altar, the platform at our church will be an altar of remembrance for me, saying, Lord, he's yours. He's all yours. He's not mine. Some of you are like, I don't want my kids to ever grow up. It's going to be okay. Because here's the thing. You can release him into the most capable hands that ever were. As much as we think our hands are capable and all of those things, God's are so much more. And there isn't a better place for my son to be than in God's hands. There's no better place for your child or your loved one to be than in God's hands. In the story of Samuel, while he's serving in the temple, this is a good point, okay? Listen well. He's serving in the temple and God speaks to him. He has a personal encounter with Jesus Christ when Hannah is away. He is fully reliant on God. And that's what happens when we have to step away. That gives opportunity for it to be God and our child. And that is okay, because that means our child is no longer relying on us, but they have to learn how to be reliant on God. And that's the place we want them to be. That is what we have raised them to do, is to no longer be relying on us, but to have an encounter with Jesus Christ, to hear his voice, to follow it, to be obedient to it, and have this personal relationship. If you're releasing your child, or someone who is, share this podcast with them. Hopefully it'll give them some encouragement. And know that it's okay to embrace the feelings. It's okay to cry. Because I love the verse that says in Psalm 56, 8-11, it says, you have kept count of my tossing. I've had some tossing. You put my tears in a bottle, and they not in your book? And this I know, that God is for me, whose word I praise, and in the Lord I shall not be afraid. I'm entering a season of a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings. I'll probably do a podcast of when we take her to college. That's going to be a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings. Our world changes again. And as things, I don't want to bar myself from the emotions, but be like, hey, here they are. Let's deal with them. Let's walk through this. It's okay. It's okay to have the feelings. It's okay to walk through them. And if I cry my heart out, God sees each tear. And I love that. He cares about each tear that falls from my face, even the one that I think is from allergies. But I have the comfort, and I want you to have the comfort of knowing that God is for our child. He loves them, He cares for them, and He will help you process all these feelings and emotions. So, here we go.